are listening to Proof of Love with Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on Proof of Love is intended as financial advice, legal advice, therapy, or really anything other than entertainment. Please take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're hearing us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on, or of any of the sponsors or affiliate products that you may hear about on the show. Now that that's squared away, let's start the show. Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. This episode of Proof of Love is brought to you by Vaultoro. Vaultoro is a gold hedging solution for the crypto community. One of the challenges of investing in cryptocurrencies is dealing with volatility. Keeping a diversified portfolio is a key to healthier returns. I keep about 10% of my crypto assets in gold using Vaultoro. Vaultoro allows me to open a gold wallet in seconds where I can trade easily with cryptos and gold. What I like about using Vaultoro instead of Tether is that the gold in my Vaultoro wallet is insured, audited, vaulted in Switzerland, and unlike fiat money, gold has increased in value for the last 20 years. Visit vaultoro.gold/Tatiana today and get zero trading fees for the first 3 months. That is vault, like a gold vault, and oro, which is Spanish for gold. Vaultoro, ale. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Proof of Love, the show where you feel embarrassed after you taped it and feel like you might have overshared, but you do the show anyway because you love your audience. Welcome. Today, we are broadcasting from California. It's me and Stephanie. Stephanie, how's it going today?
Good. I loved your intro. Is that really the show it is? The show where you overshare and then you regret it, but then you don't because you love your audience?
That's exactly right. That's an accurate description.
I love that. We're actually broadcasting from both coasts simultaneously. I'm up in New Hampshire and you're in California. So yay for technology.
Yeah, maybe we'll even get Lauren onto the show. We've been trying to get Lauren on, but she's got this new job. So sometimes we splice her into Q&A because she wants to be a part of it, but we're not sure if she'll be on this one. So we hope you're on here, Lauren, but if you're not, we'll miss you. Anywho.
Yes. Okay, so we have 3 questions to do today. Are you ready for the first one?
I'm pumped.
Yes, me too. Okay, so the first question is, as you alluded to in the intro, should you share your love woes on the internet? How much is too much to share? Good question.
So the reason why we're doing that question is because I asked a question on my Facebook wall not too long ago, and my mother, she sent me a huge text message stating that people on Facebook are not my friends and that I can't share anything on there, and I felt a little bit guilty. But, you know, I can't really do the show if I'm not going to share my personal life with an audience, right? I mean, that wouldn't be a very good show. And I think that this is something that other people experience, not just in sharing information about their relationship online, but also maybe if you get into a fight with your spouse and you tell your friends about it, and then your friends hate that person forever, even though now you're still back with them and you're like, oh man, now I have no friends on either side. So I think it's a question to a lot of different people, especially in the age of social media. So yeah, what do you think, Steph?
Yeah, I love that way you twisted the question into the question about should you tell your friends if you have a fight with your significant other, because that can be a real issue. I don't know about you, but that's definitely happened to me in the past where I told my friends about a conflict I had with my significant other, and in one extreme case, it was a bad conflict, and some of my friends were like, "We don't want to be friends with either of you guys anymore." Because if you're gonna stay with him after this, then we don't want to be friends with you. Maybe that's a little bit of an overshare, but this like really scarred me. I was like, wait a minute, I thought I could tell my friends and that they would still be my friends. And then I also noticed, like I watch these shows, like these reality TV shows, and I know they don't really represent life, but like shows like Married at First Sight and 90 Day Fiancé are my guilty pleasure. Okay.
I know.
And in the case of Married at First Sight, I really like it because it's all about an arranged marriage. and people don't meet each other until their own wedding. And then they have to actually figure out how to get to know each other, whether they want to stay married or get divorced. And like the only way out is divorce. That's like the premise of the show. But in the process, they're really figuring out a lot about communication. And all of their conflicts and fights are shared with the entire America, right? And how vulnerable is that? Like, can you imagine doing that? Like having your personal life filmed and all of the fights that you have at the beginning of a relationship with someone you just met are broadcast out to America? I mean, that is an extreme version of sharing.
But
So
people love it probably.
yeah, I think people love it, but people also get really into a lot of camps where they either support someone or they don't, right? Like they'll see people acting a certain way on the show, and then everyone has an opinion about it on the internet, and they're not shy about saying them on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and wherever else. And they're like, I think she should leave him. And of course, all the filming happened 6 months ago, so you don't really have any, you're not really watching something current, right? But can you imagine if a fight that you had with your significant other 6 months ago was broadcast out to everyone in America, and then you're sitting there 6 months after it happened? Maybe you've already worked through it. Maybe you want to forget about it, and then everyone is suddenly talking about it. I mean, that would be really extreme. But that's something that can happen when you share fights that you have in your relationships with friends and family. You can resolve it with your partner, but your family may never resolve it in their mind unless maybe they have a separate conversation with your partner or something like that. And you might have some family members or friends that were like, I don't know, I never really liked this person in the first place. And then they use that fight as an excuse to keep holding a grudge against them. So yeah, that could be a challenge.
Well, then you've got a whole bunch of people rooting against your love, and love is hard enough as it is. But I do think that you need to be able to tell your friends. I don't know. I have a friend right now and she's doing something in her relationship that I don't like. And I almost don't even want to hear about it, but I feel guilty not listening to it because I feel like I have to. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, and you probably want to because she was listening to you in the past, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, I think that it becomes a little bit burdensome maybe for everybody. But at the same time, I think people are very driven, you know? I think that's why these social media sites, they do so well because you want to almost testify. You want to tell your story to people. And it's very validating to be able to tell it, especially in your own way. Also, you run the risk of listening to annoying people on Facebook. There are so many annoying people on the internet. So you might actually end up aggravating yourself. Maybe it's just a balance, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I have another question. Like, have you ever shared something personal on Facebook and then gotten like a really valuable piece of advice about it, or like a perspective that was really helpful to you that maybe you didn't see before? Has that ever happened to you?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm very curious. I like to hear what people have to say. It helps me process my own thought. I think that sometimes when people give you advice, they get really angry when you don't take it. But I think that's a little bit unfair. I mean, if you're giving advice, you're offering something for consideration. And I think that's what the person is looking for, right? They're looking for different ideas. When you're posting something on the internet, you're looking for either validation or a different perspective. But that doesn't guarantee that you have to take that perspective. And I think some people get mad about that.
Yeah, definitely. And so many times when we post something on the internet or when people are typing anything on the internet, you always have to take it with a grain of salt because there's a lot of projection that goes on. And what do I mean by that? It means that the person is actually talking to themselves instead of talking to you. Like they might be answering a question that you asked, but they're really replying to their past self in response to a mistake that they made in the past. That's kind of like
Totally.
your current question.
Projectors. They're so annoying, those people. They don't even listen to the question half the time.
Yeah, and sometimes they just don't listen and they're replying to something that you didn't even ask. And so in that case, you have to develop your skills at not taking things personally. And one thing that my partner says to me that's really very, very helpful is that often when someone is criticizing you, it's actually more about their self-criticism and their self-judgment. And so it's helpful to think about that, right? Like when you get a judgment or a critique thrown at you from someone else, think about, well, why could they be saying that? What if it was actually something that they judge about themselves, right? So for example, if somebody says, oh, that's gay, right? Maybe they have some gay feelings that they're not quite dealing with or something like that. Or if somebody says, oh, you're so selfish, right? Maybe they're embarrassed of how they've acted inconsiderately in the past.
That's very possible. See, advice isn't all it's cracked up to be.
It's not. I mean, and I think if you ask a question like that, you're going to get 90, 95% crap in response, right? And the crap is going to be projections and self-judgments that are being put onto you, and things like, or just bad advice, things that, don't really work for you, or they don't understand the situation. But especially if you cultivate a good group of friends who you trust and who you value their opinion, it can also be extremely helpful, because you might get that one gold nugget in the pile of poop that's really, really helpful, and you wouldn't have had that unless you put yourself out there and asked about it.
Yeah, I like that. I'm wondering if our audience has any things where they shared with people, and then it kind of bit them in the butt. I like stories like that illustrate the point one way or the other. So if you guys have tried to share your relationship stuff with others and it backfired, or it was a good idea, what do you guys think? Am I oversharing on this show? Am I oversharing on Facebook? Is that okay? Is that a bad idea?
I'm always afraid that it's going to bite me in the butt. So I tend to be really tight about what I share and what I don't. And I put very little out there on social media. But I will say that, my first podcast, I was sharing a lot of personal stuff through podcasts. So it wasn't like Facebook posts and tweets and things like that. It was more of a personal medium where people could hear my voice. And I will say that I made some really great, lasting, quality friendships through the show because I was putting myself out there. So I'm really grateful that I decided to do that.
All right.
But I'm always afraid I'm going to overshare.
Well, I think I'm just made to overshare. I don't know, because if you think about doing music, right? When you do music, the point of it is to establish a connection with somebody, and also, on an emotional level too. So I don't know. I think of this a little bit as like an extension of creativity.
Everyone's going to have their individual threshold. And I think you're right, Tatiana, that your whole line of work and your creative projects are all about expressing yourself. And you're also quite extroverted, I would say. And so it just feels natural for you. Why would you not share something, right? You don't have anything to hide, right? You don't mind sharing it. But I'm wondering about your mom. Do you mind if I ask you more about what you think is going on for her?
Well, okay, sure. You can ask, I guess. Sure, she'll
Yeah,
really.
I'm just curious, what was her concern? Was she concerned that you were embarrassing her somehow by oversharing, or that you were going to be putting yourself into vulnerable of a position? Because you're an adult, right? She doesn't need to be giving you advice about how much to share at this point in your life, right? If you haven't if you haven't adopted her thresholds or her standards for what to share and what not to share by this age, it's probably not going to change. So, what do you think was going on for her?
I think she doesn't want me to post anything that guy would see, which it's first of all, I'm not a moron. I don't have a public page. Second of all, it's not like I'm posting, something really juicy and dirty. It's not very interesting. And then she's like, what would my friends think if they see it on your page? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Am I responsible for their thoughts? I don't know. What's the deal there?
Yeah, this is when you invoke the phrase of "what other people think about me is none of my business."
Well, I mean, I think that she's trying to be helpful.
Yeah, it sounds to me like she's trying to be helpful. She cares about your relationship, and she wants to make sure your relationship is supported, right?
I guess so. I mean, the thing is that she doesn't even want to hear about it. I think I actually tested her. I was like, oh yeah, what's the guy's name? She knew, which I was shocked by, because she doesn't even want to hear at all about my relationship. So it's why does she even care what I'm posting on the internet? What difference does that make?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it can be hard for our parents' generation to adapt to social media because they didn't grow up with it. But I mean, we didn't grow up with it either, really, to be fair. Social media was a pretty new thing, and it didn't come out really until after I graduated from college. So it was in my mid 20s, I think, is when I first got a Facebook account. And I was a little bit late to the party, but I didn't grow up with it. And I wonder definitely about how it's going to affect children who are growing up with not much in the way of privacy, right? How is that going to affect this generation of people and their ideas about privacy and sharing?
Yeah, who knows?
So our next question comes to us from an audience member. Is it okay to talk about Bitcoin on a first date?
This has definitely happened to tons and tons of our audience members because we're all zealots and we all love Bitcoin. I actually did talk about Bitcoin on a first date and it was okay. My friend Lisa thinks that it sets her apart from other women. She thinks that it makes her seem interesting. Sometimes people glaze over. I was told that I'm too salesy. So those are my data points about this. I have some feelings.
I think it could be a good icebreaker. I mean, especially if the other person's interested in it. And if it's a part of your life, sure. I mean, if you work in the cryptocurrency industry or if you're just really interested in it, then sure. Share your passions with somebody. Don't hide that because you're afraid it makes you look nerdy. They're going to find out you're a nerd at some point, so you might as well put it out there up front.
Well, I think it also speaks to your character. You know what I'm saying? Like cryptocurrency and the reason why we've all gotten involved isn't because, oh, I thought I could make a lot of money. It's because of a philosophy held inside that believes in freedom, and I think that that's sort of core to who we are as crypto people, don't you think?
I do, but I also don't think that everyone who's involved now at this point is in it for the values. Like I think there are just a lot of people who are like, "Ooh, this seems like a good way to make money." And they don't really have a clue about any of the values that are associated with it. But that's a good thing to talk about too with a first date, right? Are they interested in internet freedom and decentralized technologies and putting the power of money into the hands of the people, or are they more interested in making money, or do they just tell jokes about it? Is it like not something they really think about much? Those are great things to talk about on a first date.
What if they don't like Bitcoin? Can you still date them?
Yes, I think absolutely you can. As we talked about on one of our previous Q&As, to me, I think it's more important the way you talk about stuff that you disagree about. Can you talk about it respectfully, and are they curious, and are they asking questions, or are they just kind of, not showing any curiosity and just dismissing you or steamrolling over you or something, or tuning out? Those actually are great tests for a new relationship, because it's really important to be able to have those respectful two-sided conversations in a relationship. And so test it out with a subject you differ on or you disagree about and see how it goes. And I think if you do have those good quality conversations, then you can pretty much talk about anything, even if you disagree.
I agree. I think having a curious mind and an open mindedness is very helpful in a partner. You know, you want somebody who's going to be curious and interested. And maybe if it's not Bitcoin, then it's other things. At least that they have other interests and stuff that they're passionate about. But being a Bitcoin lover is certainly helpful, in my opinion.
I agree. And
I don't think that people realize that you don't make money off of Bitcoin. So I try and sell people on Bitcoin all the time. And I've gotten the feedback or the question from them like, oh, so what do you get out of this? And it's like, absolutely nothing, actually.
oh,
I don't
like they
know.
think you're a salesperson for like Bitcoin Corp or something.
Exactly. Yeah, they think that I'm making money off of it. And I'm like, no, doofus, I'm just telling you about the good word of Satoshi.
Yes, it's a psychological profit you get from sharing your ideas.
Exactly. And also, it's kind of fun. I don't know. I went through a Bitcoin explanation one of these days, and it was good because I figured, sometimes if you try and date somebody, it doesn't work out. But I feel like I'm offering them value by telling them about Bitcoin. I don't
Oh
know. I'd
yeah,
be psyched if
absolutely.
somebody told me about Bitcoin. I'd be like, thanks. Hot tip.
Yeah, you were saying something about nerdiness, and I think like being a nerd or a geek or a dork or whatever is really just a way of saying you're very passionate about something. And maybe it's something that not many other people are so passionate about, or maybe it's something that's kind of unusual, but that's okay. And I think that passion is one of the things that's really attractive, especially in, well, in anyone. I think it's like if you see someone who's passionate about something, almost no matter what it is, as long as they're not like fanatical, right?
Sure.
um, that's interesting, right? And it makes you catch their passion. It's almost like infectious. So
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't describe it as infectious, but you get the idea.
Get infected by the Bitcoin bug. Bleh. Weird. Okay, so we've got one more question. Um, and if
The
the audience
question
is listening and they talked about Bitcoin on a first date, I want to know if it came out okay. Like, did it go over well? Did you win that person over, or did they leave? Because I think a lot of the guys, yeah, before we move on to the next question, crypto guys that are listening to this is not carte blanche to mansplain every cryptocurrency on earth for 4 hours. Nobody wants to listen to that. You could talk about it for 20 to 30 minutes tops maximum on a date. And then you have to listen to whatever the chick wants to talk about. That's the rule.
Well, and feel them out to see if they're actually asking questions about it or if they're just, their eyes are glazing over. Like, always be aware of that.
Well, that's what my one friend was saying to me. She's like, Tatiana, you talked about Bitcoin. And I'm like, look, I can read a room. I know someone's eyes are glazing over. Come on now. And that's the thing. Read the room.
Yes, read the room. It's all about awareness. Okay, so our next question is actually about dirty talk. So, dirty talk, how do you do it? That's a simple question, but it's actually not so simple, right? Do you have any advice, Tatiana?
I do. I do have some advice. So I felt that dirty talking was very difficult to do for a long time. I never wanted to do it. But then I had, I don't know, one or two boyfriends that were like animals in that department. And yeah, and then it became an epidemic. And it was like, wow, I really know how to do this a lot. And maybe I don't need to tell everybody what I'm thinking at all times. So you can create a monster, but you have to start out slow. And you should be with somebody that you like. And you should think about what words you think are disgusting and tell them those words in advance so they don't accidentally say a word that you don't like. And then you should.
This is great. That's a really specific tip. Okay, so
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you can actually look at it that way. So, you know, you can first start out with making sounds, right? Some people, they don't make any sounds in bed. So they can start with that. And then they can say things like, oh God, or that feels good, or right there, you know, and those are sort of non-committal things that because I think what it is making any sound at all. And the overwhelming self-consciousness that you feel kind of inhibits your ability to be creative. But if you can start out with really standard phrases, I think that that's helpful, right? And then you can do those for a while. And then you can start thinking about other phrases that you like. And then you maybe throw one in and spice it up. Like, I don't think you need to go in there with a full-on erotica novel coming out of your mouth.
Okay, so first you go to dirty talk training camp, boot camp, and then you graduate onto the more advanced phrases.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's also helpful if your partner makes a sound, and I think positive reinforcement is really good. So you can say, oh, I love that sound you make, or oh, I like when you say that. And you don't even necessarily, I think, need to make it sexually related, right? Like, if you have a hard time communicating to somebody, you know, for example, this guy that I'm dating, he says something really so complimentary, and it makes me feel shy and weird, but I'll say it, you know, wow, I love when you say that, because that's the behavior that I really want to feel. And I want that person to do it more. So I think that if you can just, you don't necessarily have to be the aggressor. You can almost be supporting their actions that are maybe more verbal that you like. Yeah, that's another thing I would try out, is giving them positive reinforcement.
Yeah, that's great. And you can do that with non-verbally too, right? Where you can just like touch their hand, or you can guide it to where you want to go or where you want to be touched or something, or you can do to them what you would like to be done to you. I mean, but what if you don't like something? How do you do that? How do you navigate that? And now we're getting into like a little bit of a different question, which is like communicating about what you want sexually. But I think this is fruitful to talk about. So what if you don't like something?
Okay, well, before we move to that, I wanted to say there's one more idea. You can talk to them about like a time that you saw them and that they did something hot. So you can almost describe, oh, remember that time where we made out in the movies and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's not like the greatest description, but you know, you can also sort of reference other times that were sexually attractive, or when you saw them and you weren't able to fulfill your desires. So you can talk about that. I think that can add a lot, and it's topic based. So you don't feel like, I like it when you touch my vagina, you know, like I probably wouldn't say something like that.
Right. Not sexy.
And so now we go to your question, right? Like, what's not sexy in bed? That's why I think people should start out really kind of taking it easy. And, you know, maybe if you're watching a movie, not even, you know, necessarily think everybody should start out watching porn together. I think when you start inserting porn, it just adds another energy level that I don't think is necessary if you're trying to actually connect with the person. But if you're watching a movie and there's a love scene or something, you can almost joke around and bring it up and say, oh my God, one time, this comes with its own perils, right? Because you don't want to put a mental image of you talking dirty with somebody, but you could say, oh, one time my friend, she told me about this guy and he called it her yin yang and she didn't like it. And then you can
yin yang.
No, I mean, that's not like a real story. It's just like a made up story. But the point is that you can communicate what you want without overtly having to say, listen, don't call it a yin yang or whatever. You can have a little bit of fun with that conversation. I think a little bit of alcohol, and you can do that outside of the bedroom. So you can sort of say it in a funny way, and then you can flirt around with it. Be like, oh, do you like it when I call it a hoo-ha or something? Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously you come up with some sexy stuff and then you throw in a couple of funny things. I think people, if they have a fun attitude and they don't mind a little bit of comedy, dirty talk becomes more fun. And I think it's okay. And don't talk about comedy. And like some people, they're like daddy. Like, I mean, I feel like that's like definitely not something that you should express in your first round.
But what about later rounds?
I think that's disgusting, but I don't want to be judgmental. But what I'm saying is like, don't bring up a taboo thing. Don't be like, oh man, I can't wait to pee on you later. Like, that's not going to be something that's going to go over in a first situation. So, just certain things I think are a little bit more taboo.
Unless you meet on like ilovewatersports.com or something, and then it's fair game.
Exactly. I think that's acceptable, but I don't know if everybody in this audience is doing that. I think the fair, go safe. Don't go big or go home with this. That's not the attitude to have with dirty talk.
Yeah, well, especially if you're uncomfortable with it, right? I like what you said about starting out with just sounds, right? You can just make little sounds of pleasure, or you can say something like yes or like that right there, something like that.
Exactly. I think that those work out, and you just got to take it slow. I mean, I think even the sound of sex itself, if you actually listen, can be really erotic, but people maybe are a little bit nervous to engage that part of themselves. I don't know.
Yeah, some people I think even go overboard, right? Especially women, because they're used to seeing porno movies where the woman's like, just screaming the whole time. And that can be really distracting and not sexy, right? And so sometimes we make noises because we think our partners expect us to. And if we go quiet, then they're going to think they're doing something wrong. But, you can always communicate about that. Hey, I'm not really a big noisemaker. So, I'm going to tell you it feels good with touch or whatever, instead of like screaming the whole time, and your eardrums will thank me.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I think these are good starter tips.
For the more advanced, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I kind of want to know like embarrassing stories of sexy talk gone wrong. I'm trying to think if I have any kind of experiences like that, but I don't think so. But I think that it could go wrong. Definitely.
I think it could go wrong too. Yeah. Especially if you're kind of self-conscious and you're like, nervous and it's your first time with this person. And I don't know, just the first time with anyone, I think is not the best until you get to know each other. It gets better over time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, when you first start fooling around with somebody, just get the basics down. And then you can move on to the advanced stuff. Give them a minute, see what they like.
Now, when you are ready for the advanced courses, I like what Dan Savage says about like, you can always narrate what you've just done, what you are doing, or what you're going to do. And so all you have to do is just describe what's going on or what just happened or what you would like to do next. And that might involve getting comfortable with certain words, right? Like some people just can't bring themselves to say certain words, even if they find those words sexy. And so what you do with that is that you practice by yourself before you are with a partner. You get comfortable with saying out loud the words that you're going to say, get the giggles out of your system, right? Like, for example, if you just can't say dick, or I'm trying to think of a word that's not that
one. Pussy, I think, can be a little bit hard for people to say. I can't believe I just said it. Oh my gosh. It's so scandalous.
Okay. Well, if you can't say pussy, just go in the shower, in your car, somewhere where you're alone, and preferably Google's not listening or Alexa's not listening either, you know, go somewhere, just go by yourself and just say, pussy, 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 until you,
Oh my God.
until it's not funny anymore. And now someone's going to clip out that clip of me. It's going to be on YouTube or something.
I want to clip that out because we make these little sound clips on the social media to share the show. I think that needs to make it in.
Yeah. Well, see, I've done the work, so I'm not embarrassed of it. So you go ahead.
Okay, wait. By the way, so I thought of a funny person story. I have a friend of mine. She has been in a happy relationship for a very long time, but before she did, man, she had the best stories. And so she was having sex with this guy, and he goes, "Whose pussy am I fucking?" And she's just like, "I don't know, like mine? Yours?" Like, I'm fucking confused. Sorry. We have to like label this as an explicit episode, but it just wouldn't have worked if I didn't say those specific words. But like, whose is it? Like, I don't know. What do you answer to that? For future reference, you have an answer? I can't even say it again.
I imagine he was so turned on in the moment that she could have said, like grandma's or something, or, you know, like she could have said anything and he would have been like, yeah. People don't care when they're really turned on. You know, your inhibitions get loosened. That's the thing about like when we get really turned on, there's some kind of neurological mechanism that actually turns off the disgust or like lowers it down. And so things that we wouldn't normally do, like stick our face in someone's genitalia, because that would be gross, we're like, oh yeah, I'm happy to do that when I'm turned on, right? And then sometimes after people, you know, finish, then they start to feel ashamed because, you know, then their disgust threshold creeps right back up and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I would never normally do that. But
that's
in the heat of the
drink
moment,
on dates, you know, they want to lower that inhibition.
yeah, true. Especially if you're with someone that you've never been with before, that's like, that takes a little bit more courage and there's more unknown, right? There's more potential danger there. You know, about, I don't know, you just don't know what you're getting into. So hopefully there's not danger to your actual safety, but that's what you have to judge.
I like this. I think that we've given people some tips. I feel like dirty talk will come up again though.
Yeah, well, if you have embarrassing stories, we would love to hear them with a funny pseudonym, proofoflovecast.com.
Or any tips. Yeah, we like the funny pseudonyms. But yeah, if you have any tips, have you used a certain phrase that has always worked? We like tips. Come check out the show, guys, proofoflovecast.com. Share it with your friends. Thanks so much to our sponsors, Voltoro and Altangent Labs with their beautiful blocktap.io product. So check that out online. And what are we doing? We're doing Proof of Love on Fridays. This has been Tatiana Moroz.
And Dr. Stephanie Murphy.
And we love chatting with you guys. Thanks so much. Send in your questions. We'll see you next time on Proof of Love. If you have a project that needs reliable cryptocurrency data, check out blocktap.io. Blocktap.io is a universal cryptocurrency API. You can get historical prices for Bitcoin and other digital assets that you can use to build charts and do market analysis. Blockchain data is also indexed so you can get transaction statistics, address balances, and more for Bitcoin and other networks. Blocktap.io is free for personal use, and you don't even need to create an account to access the API. To get started, try some of the example queries on the homepage at blocktap.io. Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Do you like cryptocurrency, politics, economics, activism, or art? Then check out The Tatiana Show, where you can learn all about it in a fun and non-intimidating way, as if you're just hanging with friends. Go to thetatianashow.com and listen now. Thank you for listening to Proof of Love. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Proof of Lovecast. More episodes can be found at proofoflovecast.com. And make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends.
Proof of Love has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond.